Through it all, D4VD remained hidden. He canceled performances, avoided public appearances, and disappeared from the internet entirely. For a musician whose fame depended on connection, the silence was deafening. Yet his absence also created space for even wilder theories to grow. By the end of the month, one thing was clear. The truth behind Elise Monroe's death was no longer just a police matter, it had become a public obsession, and D4VD was at the center of a storm that threatened to consume his entire career. A month after the story had reached its peak, a mysterious post appeared online that reignited the entire case. An anonymous Reddit user uploaded a short video clip, claiming it was security footage from the night Elise Monroe died. The grainy recording showed a shadowy figure entering her apartment building just before midnight. Though the image was blurry, the person's build, clothing, and hairstyle bore an uncanny resemblance to D4VD. The post went viral within hours. People slowed down the footage, zoomed in, and analyzed every frame. YouTubers released breakdown videos, comparing D4VD's past outfits and tattoos to the person in the recording. Some insisted it was undeniable proof, while others argued it was staged. The leak spread faster than the authorities could contain it. The police confirmed that they were aware of the footage, but warned the public that it could have been manipulated. However, that statement did little to stop the chaos. The video had already done its damage. D4VD's streaming numbers dropped overnight. Sponsors withdrew deals, citing ongoing controversy. His upcoming album, which had been nearly complete, was put on hold indefinitely. Even his most loyal fans began to question what they believed. The hashtag justice for Elise trended again, and D4VD's name was dragged back into the center of every conversation. But soon, a few observant viewers noticed something strange about the clip. Reflections in the building's glass door didn't match the time stamp in the corner of the screen. When slowed down, a flicker appeared, a faint outline of a second figure holding what looked like a camera. This discovery raised more questions than answers. Had someone recorded the footage themselves and doctored it to look like security camera footage? If so, who stood to gain from it? Investigators quietly began looking into the origins of the leak. Tracing the Reddit account led nowhere. It had been created the same day and deleted hours later. Meanwhile, media outlets continued to report the story as if the footage was authentic. Public trust in the investigation began to fracture. For D4VD, the pressure became unbearable. Friends claimed he isolated himself completely, refusing to speak even to his closest collaborators. Whether guilty or innocent, he had become a prisoner of perception. The truth seemed to slip further away, buried beneath the noise of the internet that had once made him famous. Months after the leaked footage surfaced, the case seemed to fade from public attention. Yet behind the scenes, investigators were quietly re-examining old evidence that hadn't fit the original narrative. A break came when an independent journalist began piecing together a different version of events. Instead of focusing on D4VD's connection to Elise, the journalist looked deeper into her professional life. Elise had been part of a small online group for aspiring artists and producers, a place where young musicians traded samples, lyrics, and unfinished tracks. Among the usernames in that group was one that drew attention, an alias later traced to one of D4VD's longtime producers. This person had worked on many of his early songs and had direct access to his studio, personal files, and unreleased projects. Through interviews and data records, the journalist discovered that Elise had accused someone in that group of stealing her original melodies months before her death. Private messages revealed heated arguments, followed by Elise threatening to expose the theft. She had planned to release a public post naming the producer and providing proof. Then, only weeks later, she was found dead. The new findings changed everything. What had seemed like a personal tragedy tied to D4VD now appeared to have roots in the music industry. A darker side: jealousy, plagiarism, and professional betrayal. When the journalist's report went public, the internet erupted again. This time, the narrative flipped. People began questioning whether D4VD had been used as a distraction while the real culprit operated in the background. Authorities reopened parts of the case and brought in the producer for questioning. During this phase, new evidence surfaced: a deleted hard drive recovered from the studio shared by D4VD's team. On it were multiple unfinished recordings, including Elise's voice on a track labeled with the date of her death. Experts confirmed the file had been modified after that date, suggesting someone had accessed it posthumously. D4VD's name was once synonymous with talent and mystery until a young woman named Elise Monroe was found dead, and his silence turned from intriguing to incriminating. D4VD had always been an enigma. The young musician rose from obscurity with a voice that felt both distant and intimate, creating music that seemed to speak directly to broken hearts across the internet. His songs painted pictures of loneliness, love, and regret, wrapped in haunting melodies that made listeners feel as if they were hearing confessions from someone they knew. He rarely gave interviews, never shared personal details, and let his art tell his story. That mystery became part of his brand until one night, it turned into something darker. News broke that a 22-year-old woman named Elise Monroe had been found dead inside her apartment under suspicious circumstances. At first, it seemed like a tragic but unrelated case. Then, fans began connecting dots no one expected to find. Online, detectives unearthed old photos of Elise attending one of D4VD's private listening sessions months earlier. A few blurry images showed her in the background at a studio event, and soon, threads appeared claiming they had once been romantically involved. Others speculated she had inspired his breakout song, one that mentioned a girl who disappeared after the rain. The internet swarmed with theories, some based on real clues, others pure fantasy. Within hours, hashtags linking D4VD's name to the death trended worldwide. Police confirmed that D4VD had been questioned as a person of interest but insisted there was no arrest at this time. The phrase echoed across social media, feeding speculation rather than calming it. Every move he made became public property. His silence, once seen as mysterious, was now interpreted as guilt. Old posts of his were reanalyzed, fans claiming his lyrics held hidden meanings about loss and secrecy. Even his music videos were replayed frame by frame, as if they contained messages about what had happened. Friends close to Elise described her as bright, artistic, and deeply ambitious. She had dreams of working in the music industry and often mentioned collaborating with someone big who could help her career. No one imagined that connection would one day draw her into a national scandal. Meanwhile, D4VD's team released a brief statement expressing condolences but denying any involvement. The public wasn't satisfied. The internet's hunger for answers had turned into an obsession. Every mystery in D4VD's past, once part of his allure, was now a shadow hanging over him. The line between truth and rumor began to blur, and by the time the police investigation deepened, one thing had become clear: fame and privacy could not coexist anymore. The investigation into Elise Monroe's death quickly became a storm that no one could control. News outlets picked up the story, repeating fragments of information from online forums as if they were facts. Social media turned into a courtroom, where strangers debated whether D4VD was guilty or simply caught in a tragic coincidence. Each day brought new claims, screenshots, anonymous tips, and supposed inside sources. Fans who once shared his music now dissected it like evidence, quoting lines that seemed to match the details of Elise's final days. One particular track drew the most attention, a slow and mournful song describing a message left unsent. The timing of its release matched the week Elise had reportedly tried to contact him. To many, it felt like too much of a coincidence to ignore. Behind the scenes, D4VD's world was falling apart. His management team advised him to stay silent, hoping the chaos would die down, but silence only made things worse. Every deleted post or lack of response was seen as proof of guilt. Paparazzi waited outside his home, capturing blurry photos that tabloids twisted into sensational headlines. A single picture of him leaving a recording studio late at night became viral, with captions claiming he had been summoned by police again. None of it was true, but the truth no longer mattered. What mattered was the narrative people believed. Police continued to gather evidence, confirming only that Elise's phone had contained a string of unsent messages to a contact saved under D4VD's stage name. They refused to reveal what those messages said, citing the ongoing investigation. That secrecy pushed the public further into speculation. Online detectives created timelines, maps, and theories about what might have happened. Some suggested Elise had been blackmailing someone. Others believed she had discovered something dangerous. Every rumor became another piece of a puzzle that might not even exist. D4VD, who had remained silent for months, finally cooperated fully, handing over all his studio records and personal messages to prove his innocence. Behind closed doors, investigators began to see a clearer picture. The motive, it seemed, was not emotional, but professional, silencing someone who knew too much. The story that once painted D4VD as a suspect now revealed him as another victim of manipulation within an industry where secrets and ambition could destroy lives. The truth that had seemed so close once again began to blur as the main suspect, the producer linked to Elise's death, disappeared before formal charges could be filed. Authorities confirmed that he had fled the country just days after being questioned. His passport records showed a sudden flight booked under a false name, and attempts to track him led nowhere. With the primary lead gone, the case lost its momentum. The investigation stalled, leaving unanswered questions hanging over everyone involved. Despite the mounting evidence that pointed toward the producer's involvement, the lack of a confession or trial meant the case could not officially be closed. For Elise's family, it was another devastating blow. For D4VD, it was both a relief and a burden. The shadow of suspicion still followed him everywhere he went. When D4VD finally returned to social media, it was through a simple statement. He thanked those who had stood by him and offered sympathy to Elise's family. He made no mention of the investigation, the producer, or the theories that had consumed the internet. To some, his silence was a sign of grace. To others, it felt like an avoidance of truth. Reporters tried to reignite the story, but interest soon shifted elsewhere. The online community that had once dissected every lyric and video moved on to the next trending mystery. Yet for those who had followed every detail, the story didn't feel finished. The fact that no arrest had been made left a haunting uncertainty, a sense that justice had been left incomplete. Months later, new fans discovered his music and listened without knowing the story behind it. But those who remembered still searched for meaning in every song he released afterward. Some claimed his new tracks hinted at guilt. Others believed they reflected trauma and loss. The mystery became part of his identity, a cloud that would never fully disappear. The case of Elise Monroe remained officially open, though no progress was reported again. The producer's whereabouts were unknown, and with him went the chance of a clear ending. For the public, the question lingered like an unfinished lyric: had D4VD truly been cleared, or had the truth been buried beneath fame, fear, and silence? In the end, the world moved on, but the story never really closed. It simply faded into whispers, waiting for the day the final piece of evidence might surface.